Welcome to episode 8 of the DWRD Net stationary feed. Today on the show we have none other than Shawn Newton of Newton Pens. Shawn, welcome. So just to get us started, introduce yourself and kind of give us an overview of who you are and what you do.
My name is Shawn Newton. I'm 44 years old. I'm from Hot Springs, Arkansas. I used to be an art teacher. I taught, I'm going to go a really long way into this. I taught K-6 art for 2 years, and then I taught 7-12 art for 5 years. In my third year teaching high school, so 2012, I started making fountain pens. I had already been into pens for a couple of years at that point, since Valentine's Day of 2010, when my wife bought me a Schaefer Viewpoint from Hobby Lobby, which they don't even sell anymore, I just discovered. But yeah, so I'm Shawn and I make pens.
No, that's great. So what I've been doing for guests is just to get started asking a couple of basic pen and stationery related questions. So first off, what do you currently have inked? What have you been writing with lately?
All right, so when I write in the shop, it's usually to tune a nib for a customer. But when I'm just writing with whatever, I have 3 little pens in front of me. One was a gift from someone at the Dallas show. This is a Shawn design small pen. Well, anyways, it's small. It's got a number 6, some other nib that they put in it, Franklin Christoph broad, and it's a really nice little pen. It's just a little aluminum anodized little thing. I like that. And then another pen. I got myself, this is probably the first pen I've actually bought for myself with actual money in years and years and years. I've gotten a lot of pens as gifts over the years from very cool customers and friends and a couple of trades here and there. But this is at San Fran. So I got this pen from Iboya, also the makers of Nico Ebonite. Tomohisa Indo. It's just a fun little black ebonite pen. It's a custom material he made. It's got a lot of colorful speckles in it and a little gold nib. And
very cool.
Yeah, I like this look. This is very nice. And one of the pens. Now, okay, so I got this really because I wasn't sure if I was going to have like opportunity again. Will he be at San Fran this year? I've wanted one of his pens for years and years, but yeah, I don't know. Something having it there in front of me makes it easier. And then last year at the Chicago show at the old hotel, this guy, this kid, Dan something, Good Made Better. He and I have been table neighbor buddies at different shows for years now, and I really like him and his family. His kids are great fun, and I saw one of his pens, or all of his pens last year, and he's going to be so mad at me for this. But I asked him to do it if he would be interested in a trade, and he said, "Yeah, sure." And so I sent him a pen, and he sent me this, which I love it and it's beautiful. But Dan, I'm really sorry. In the bag on the way home, I don't know what happened. It got smothered in some ink from something else. I don't even know what, but it's really nasty. But it's a great little pen, and I love it, and it's covered with ink. But that means it's getting used and loved, right? So
no, definitely.
Yeah, so it's just all ebonite, pink and blue and yellow, and like a gray, or I don't know, I think gray. But yeah, I love this guy. It's just got my favorite point, a medium, in it. So those 3 things, unless you count pencils, which in a pen, like a clicky. Anyways, that's what I've got right now.
So, what kind of inks do you use? Do you normally just fill up your pens with your Waterman or your Kaweco mixtures that you use when you're tuning nibs, or do you like to experiment with other inks?
I'll use other inks sometimes, but yeah, this is the Waterman and this is the Kaweco, and I had to label them because I kept forgetting, But I remember the dirty bottle, the one that's been in the shop the longest, is the Waterman. But yeah, I've got Diamine I've used before. I've used Schaefer. I've got Pinonia that are KWZ that are good.
Now, do you stick to blue normally? Because I know both your kind of trial inks are blues.
They're blues because of those 2 brands. Those are the colors I like the most. Kaweco does have a really nice purple. It's really wet, which I think could be a bad thing, in that it might kind of hide some of the issues that a nib might have with a different ink later on when someone, maybe goes home with it from a show. So I may not be able to keep using that very pretty purple, but the blues are they're very good. But I like all sorts of ink colors. Over the years, I was super heavy into greens, and a bottle of ink that I still have and I have still not finished, because who finishes ink anymore, is a bottle of Philippine special diamine ink, salamander, I think, or something like that. But it's very pretty green ink. Actually, yeah, it is. It's salamander. At least I think that's. Yeah, that's it. That's the only.
Well, you can tell if you're listening to audio only, you won't see this, but that's the old style diamine bottle with the old black and white labels. So you can tell you've had that bottle for quite some time.
I've had that
because my Oxblood bottle's the same way.
Yeah, probably since 2012 or 13. No, it had to have been 2013, because it was when Lay Reyes came to the shop from for some reason she was she didn't just come here for me to see the shop. But her and Thomas Hall came by one day. I took a day off of school, and back when I was still teaching, obviously high school. She filmed me making her Shinobi, and that little video, and like her just putting me out there into the world and saying, "Hey, this guy exists." That was huge. I'm not sure that I would have been able to go full time had it not been for that push. Or maybe it would have been a lot harder to go full time, which I think was.
No, and that's a question I have after we get this last couple of the opening that related to that. So pens and inks. What about paper? What kind of paper do you like writing on?
This stuff. Nemesine, Merriman. I think they're the same.
Yeah. Maraman is the brand. Nemesine is like the line within the brand. I've got one of those same notebooks sitting here next to me.
Yeah, this good stuff. Go Van Ness on this. Actually, Van Ness on the ink.
Yeah, and if you didn't see, Shawn has his ink that he uses at the tables in Ackerman bottles because they are the coolest ink bottles that exist with the marble and Vanessa.
With me. Forgot to bring this with me to Chicago. I just had these little guys at the Chicago table.
So, and then the final question. This is one of my favorite ones to ask so far because it's got the largest variety of answers. What's your favorite pen or stationery adjacent item? And by that, I mean a case, a book weight, a lap desk, something that you use with your pens and inks and papers that's not necessarily truly a stationary item.
I mean, my first instinct is to go for this coffee mug. Does that count?
No, that's fully appropriate.
Okay.
Anybody who's known Shawn, or if you don't know Shawn, coffee is a way of life. So,
and the coffee mugs are very important to enjoying that way of life. This one has a pen wrap in it that my wife made several years ago. You can tell it's very dirty, but it's got stuff in here that I don't use. Well, it's got all sorts of crap in it, honestly. But right now it's got ruler and calipers and a drumstick or yarn stick for stuff. And but no, the thing that makes this one of my favorite stationary adjacent items. So this is a mug that my college ceramics professor at Henderson made. His name is Aaron Calvert. So I had this thing for like a month. I'm getting out of the car with a diaper box. I just got diapers for one of the kids. I've got two kids. So I remember the driveway. I remember where we were. I just don't remember when it was, which doesn't matter. But I put this on top of the diaper box. I get out of the car and kind of stumble, and it goes tumbling down. And you can see it's got epoxy to glue it all back together, which was, I mean, it still makes me sad, but at least it's got,
hey, but it's still serving a purpose. It didn't get thrown into the trash can. It's still there on your desk.
Yeah.
And, holding stuff. So, and let's get into now Newton pens. And you already kind of touched on some of this. So, you've been making pens, you said, since what, 2010-ish is kind of when you got your first one?
So my wife Elizabeth got me my first pen for Valentine's Day in 2010. I made my first pen, or first attempt at a pen, January 6th of 2012.
Okay.
When I first, in December or November of 2011, I'd started selling pretty much everything that I had as far as my collection and things like that to try to raise money for a wood lathe and from tooling and pen blanks and nibs and all this kind of stuff. It's expensive to like jump into. At least it really was for me because I didn't have any money. I was a teacher. I was making teacher money, and even worse, I was making the smallest one of the smallest schools in Arkansas, lowest pay scale teacher money. Yeah, spare cash wasn't easy to come by for me, but
So along those lines, you were teaching, you got into making pens. At what point did the light bulb kind of click that, you know what? I think it might be time to move into being a pen maker full time and stepping away from teaching.
I almost got fired, but not because of anything I did, but because the superintendent at the time, who I'm not going to give you his name, but if you look really hard, you could find his criminal record, beat the crap out of his wife and the sheriff who came to like check on them because the neighbor called the cops or something. So the superintendent had put 4 people and me on a RIF, which is reduction in forces. We were all being threatened with being let go, not fired because it wasn't personal. But I was the only one in the school who didn't have some personal beef with the superintendent, which I learned when somebody asked me after school one day, "Yo, Shawn, why are you on the RIF list? What's the beef with you and what's his name over there?" I'm like, "What are you talking about beef?" So I was almost fired to make the other 4 people who did get fired not look personal. So that,
Man.
so that you
So that's a
go ahead.
I mean, I guess that's a good impetus since you already had, like you said, when Lay came and kind of, I remember that because I was following, that was when I was first getting into pins, was around that time. And when your Shinobi came out, that was like the big deal in the pin world, And that leads into my next
Crazy.
question because when you started making pins, there weren't really many independent pin makers. So when you got started, who did you reach out to? Because I know the maker community now is a whole different world than it was when you got started in the 2013, 2014 era. So just kind of talk about your progression. You were learning to do this, that became your full time profession, but did you have a mentor or a cohort? Did you reach out to the other pen makers who were there at the time, even though there were so few of you? Or just kind of talk about how that came to be?
So the people I talked to first, this was before I got to know Jonathan Brooks very well. I had seen his blanks and things online. He had already been doing that for a minute, the polyester resins, which tells you how long ago this was. No one's using that mess anymore. But so the people I talked to the most at the time were this guy named John Brady in Pennsylvania, Jeb's Pens, Jeb, and this guy out of Canada, Ken Cavers. He's a doctor or surgeon, something medical, and he has a shop that's warm enough to turn acrylics for about 2 months out of the year. He and John both gave me safety tips and a little bit of advice. And I mean, my first wood lathe was the first time I had been in the same room with a wood lathe. So I had to just, I just had to go. But they gave me some good safety tips, like don't use a rag when you're wiping because when it's turning, it will grab it and pull you in. And don't have loose dangly stuff in long hair. But there was also a good website, which is a forum, penturners.org, IAP, the International Association of Pen Makers. Most everything on there was component pen related, but there were a few things that were newer, like, hey, this guy's doing taps and dies and he made a pen without any components. That's pretty cool. So kitless pen makers is what they called them back then. Now, I mean, you're just pen makers, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, even Edison, Brian Gray gave me some really good advice. Like he's the one who recommended the metal lathe that I have and still use now, and little bits of advice here and there. But those 3, John Brady, Ken Capers out of Canada, and Brian Gray from Edison, gave me a decent amount of advice early on.
No, and I wanted to ask that because when I interviewed Nick Pasquale a while back, he kind of came into it a couple years ago where he was able to reach out to the maker community and kind of learn and go watch and see. So for you, having been doing this now for so long, it was a whole different landscape. I get the vibe. It's a lot more of an inviting community. Makers kind of self-regulate with each other. Now, if someone does try and emulate someone else's design to a T, other makers seem to call them out on it. I mean, it's going to happen. There's going to be mass-produced pens that don't follow that kind of unwritten gentleman's agreement or code of sorts. But, what are you going to do? At the end of the day, you're still able to do your thing, support your family. So you kind of have to brush it off to some extent. But talk about the pen community now. You're probably like the mentor, even if you don't realize it, to so many pen makers because they saw you be able to turn it into a full-time profession.
Yeah, this idiot can do it, I can too, right?
And I'm not saying that. But we talked briefly before the Arkansas Pen Show this year because I know that's something I want to get into trying it at some point, and I have some local makers who can kind of help guide through. Try before you buy, because like you said, it's not there's an initial cost to get started to do it right. So just kind of talk about the pen community.
Okay, weren't you looking at a meta lathe on Facebook when I saw you last?
Well, yes, but I was also, I'm waiting. I'm going to wait and go to Nick's shop. He's going to have me over at some point. I'm going to film making a pen with him before I commit to buying anything because I don't want to make the wrong decisions. I want to learn from all the people who are already doing this so I buy the right equipment. And that's what I was talking about. Knowing that there's a maker community who's supportive of each other, who they're not gatekeeping the doors. Because if people are good, they're going to find their niche in the makers community.
Yeah.
And if they're not in it, they might make a few pans and then kind of drift off into the sunset, so to speak. But, you never know until you try. So to follow up on that, my next question is, I also interviewed Daryl.
Wait, I didn't answer the last question, did I?
Well, you did and you didn't. It's because the maker community is like it is. I mean, what is your view on the community now? I mean, am I correct in the assumption that it's a pretty supportive area and, it's...
Right. There is something funny. It always surprises me, and kind of cracks me up. At pen shows, sometimes at pen shows, someone will come up and say, "Hey, I'm so and so. Good to meet you. Thanks for teaching me how to make pens." And every time I'm like, "What?" And they'll say, "Your website. You've got all these tutorials and drawings and like bad drawings, but still, and photos and like processes. And this is how I've got a ton of stuff on my website that wasn't available when I made it and put it there anywhere else that I remember seeing." And one of the things I made, and like it got uploaded to the library at the IAP website. But I have a lot of stuff on my website talking about gatekeeping. The gate's open, come on in, right? How to make pens, essentially. You just have to learn how to hold the tools and cut stuff. So it's all there. But the pen community seems really cool. Like. And I have questions every now and then. Like, for example, Higby threads is something I learned about at the Chicago show this last weekend. And the guy I was talking to is very open with me and sent me a whole lot of G code that I need to look at when I get the chance. So I don't know that I'll ever be able to do that on my machines. I'm actually not sure. But it was, no problems. Like, yeah, sure, here, just copy, paste. Here's a ton of code, which was awesome.
Well, am I correct that if I'm remembering correctly, this was probably a while ago now. I think it was Jonathan Brooks who got a CNC that you already had the same type, and you were able to go out there and help him get his up and running, stuff like that. So that's kind of unheard of in some maker communities. You're not going to have people who are willing to travel a couple of states away to help someone else get there. Essentially, in a way, they're competitor, but not their competitor. They're, their counterpart, really, because in the pen community, most of us are going to be like, oh, I need a Shawn Newton pen, but I also want a Brooks pen, but I also want a Daryl pen. It's not people are not limited to just one maker. Some people might have one they prefer of their styles and whatnot, but there's a very good chance if it's a cool material and a cool design, someone's going to pick it up and take it home with them at a show or through a website anyway.
Yeah,
but
Brooks did.
So in terms of that, though,
he did fly me out.
Well, no, but still, you were willing to, even if someone's willing to pay, you had the experience. You're like, oh yeah, I've got time. I'll come out and help you get it going. Because it's supporting the other makers.
Yeah, I love him too. He's a great guy. He's one of the coolest guys in the whole thing.
Well, that leads me into my next question, because I interviewed Daryl from D Squared Arts, who I didn't know about Daryl's pens or kind of his story until Arkansas, and even then, it was a little bit more after Arkansas, but it seems like you inadvertently kind of got him into pens because you needed some materials to
I
work,
was
and he
twisting
was.
his arm for years, and it took him way too long. But he started making blanks, and yeah, now he's making pens, and he did pretty good at Chicago too. I want to say 14 pens over the weekend,
Well,
and
yeah, and my question is, how cool is that to bring one of your college friends into your profession and kind of help? It helped you because you had materials to make your pens on, but now he's able to utilize off time on some of your machines to get bases so he can do his hand carving and whatnot.
mhm.
So, how cool is that to have been able to bring someone else with you, and now they're doing the same thing, so you have another local counterpart to kind of pass ideas back and forth from.
It's very cool. And we've been friends, and as I said at Chicago, because I thought it was funny. Yeah, we were into college together. We've been irritating each other for 20 years now.
I really like my pen I got from Daryl because after I did the interview, I picked up the pen, and it's sitting here next to of course the Newton I got that I'm using to take notes for the show, because this is. And I don't know, would you consider your Prospector to be your most recognizable design these days? I think it probably started as your Shinobi, but is your Prospector kind of the quote unquote Newton
I think so,
pen these
and that's
days?
just because what's the company that did the Shinobi knockoff? Well, there's a Chinese company. I think it's Movement. I can't remember that did a Shinobi knockoff, and I think that one's my most recognized, just because people don't realize it was mine. But really, the Shinobi was designed by the guy who commissioned the very first one. I was just the only person at the time willing to try to make it, and I made it like 4 or 5 times before I got one that wasn't garbage and worked, and he was happy with it. I hope he's still happy with it. I have no idea. But yeah, I think the Prospector is probably my most well known, my most recognized. Again, not by that company, but by 2 or 3 other fairly large pen companies around the world, is being copied again.
Oh, yeah, and I remember hearing about that in Arkansas where, someone's like, oh, someone's copying Sean Design, but that's why I said earlier. I know from talking to you, it might be a little frustrating, but there's nothing you can do if a large company like that across the world is going to make copies. So you continue doing your thing. Most people in the pen community are going to want the original. They're going to want the one made by Sean, not the knockoff. And that's another thing that's unique in the pen community is, yeah, people look for the quality in general versus the saving a buck by getting a knockoff, which that's very uncommon for most things. So the pen community is unique that the quality is sought out, or the being able to interact with you, going up and talking to you at the table at the pen show. And that is leading me into the next question. So pen shows. I know Arkansas is your home show, but how many shows a year are you doing these days? And, do you try and alternate big shows? Do you stick to more ones that are driving distance? How do you kind of handle pen shows? Because I know that's a great opportunity for you to make stuff to have to sell that's not working through a backlog list. It's able to keep you making new things, trying new things, new materials and whatnot. So just kind of talk about pen shows and, what do you like about them? And what's your favorite part of going to pen shows and having your table set up?
So the first pen show that I went to that was not Little Rock was, it might have been Dallas, but that's an easy drive. But my wife and I went to DC in 2013. I'm pretty sure it was 2013, which would make sense because it would have given me almost 2 years making pens before I went to that show. And Lisa Van Ness gave me half of her table, it was her first year going to the DC show as well. But she had been invited, and she had a couple employees go with her, and invited me to go along as another Archie, stepping foot into the wider pen world, that kind of thing. So I flew to that one, and that was a miserable experience. Everything that could go wrong in the airports with airplanes, all of it went wrong. The first flight, we were supposed to be out of Little Rock by like 11 or 12 in the afternoon, or morning, and it was 4 or 5 in the afternoon before we took off, and then it was hours later before we took off from Atlanta, I guess. So we didn't get to the hotel until like 1:45 in the morning, and we had to be up the next morning 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, when the show opened. That was a rough first start. The trip home was just as bad. We got the flight all the way back to Dallas, and Dallas. Well, the plane's broken. It'll be tomorrow afternoon before you can leave. And someone in the line behind us, someone from Hot Springs, a dentist, turns out. She's like, "Who wants to get a rental?" And like 6 of us raised our hands. So we all got a rental, and we took turns driving back to Little Rock, and got to know 5 other random people, and that was fun. But driving, so the rule for years was if I can drive it in a couple days, I'll do it. If I have to fly, like California, San Fran, I'm just not going to. But a couple years ago, I did fly to Portland. I did that 2 years in a row. Well, 2017, I drove. We drove to San Fran, and that was 3 days each way. And it was unbelievably exhausting, and I swore I would never do that again. And then last year, 2024, Lisa Van Ness and I drove out to San Fran in her minivan, which was actually much more comfortable because it's a way bigger, vehicle. So, but on the way home, we didn't just have a smooth drive. It was smooth until something hit the radiator for the electric motors, and we were stuck in Arizona for 2 days. But we're flying this year. We're just all flying this year to San Fran. It's just easier. But DC's an easy 2-day drive. Chicago's an easy 1 long day drive. But Daryl and I drove Chicago this year. We shared all that. Dallas is afternoon drive. It's so easy. And then Little Rock. So I'm only doing 5 shows a year right now: Arkansas, Chicago, DC, San Fran, and Dallas. I would love to only do 4 shows, but because this is so much, I don't know how. Like Brooks, I think he says he's doing 16 shows a year or something like that. Like, oh my god, I just no. 5 is plenty. I did 6 a year or 2 ago. I don't remember. I think it was last year, and it's no, I can't do it.
Yeah, that would be a lot of travel and just a lot of prep. It seemed like you'd get home from a show and instantly be having to rush to prep for the next one. But so in terms of, just the pins itself, I know like my wife got her first Newton in Arkansas. Her and, 2 friends, they all got matching pins that are, I think it was the Majestic.
Yeah.
That has it's all black with the different color sections. So how many kind of models are you making these days? I mean, I know it probably fluctuates, but is it 5 or 6? Or are you talking like 10 or 12? Like, what's your rough ballpark?
I try to keep it simple for the table, like 5 models. And I'm trying to keep. So I just got diagnosed with ADHD like a year and a half ago or something like that, and I'm medicated, and it has made a world of difference with all sorts of things. One of them being listening and paying attention. So at DC last August, so 24 also, I did extra. I listened better and heard people's not complaints, suggestions, and what they were looking for and what they wanted. So I'm paring things down. I would try to bring 200 pins to a show forever and ever and ever, which is a lot. Now I'm like, okay, 80 to 100. That's more than enough. Okay, so 80 to 100 pins, maybe 5 models, like tops. What is it? Paralyzed by choice. If you have too much stuff on the table to look at, to pick from, you can't pick anything, right? So I'm trying to kind of pare things down. More ebonite, more custom resins, but trying to do resins that not everybody has, which means not doing a lot of resins that I love a whole lot, but offering something that's also just more unique, which is why working with Daryl is great, because he can knock something out for me pretty quick. And also I've been working with Bob Duperis, Coral Creations out of Little Rock since the very beginning, really. Since 2012, he and I have been working together making materials, and a bunch of the materials he's made, like I asked him for originally, I named, and that have been really good movers for him, which is fun to see. It's like, hey, I helped with that, or I named that. Even though I might name something, I'll give it a different name later on because I forgot the original name for it, anyways, which frustrates Daryl to no end. But
I don't know. I think one of my favorite material names is the one that Lisa Olive Octopus got of Daryl's pens, which is Sean's workshop floor or something like that.
This story.
Just yeah,
Yeah.
Sean's office floor.
Literally, it was blue from the office floor.
So you work with different makers. You do different materials. Did you ever even try pouring your own blanks, or is that an area you wanted to stick to making pens and just getting blanks from people who like making blanks?
Yeah, I was never interested in pouring because I saw from the beginning. I did mess around with it a little bit at Bob Dupers's shop, mostly with just watching him and like seeing how the process goes. I did pour 2 blanks. They were like a blue silver kind of color combo years and years and years ago, like 2013 maybe. But all the equipment that you need for that, no, not interested. When I went to Jonathan Brooks's shop to help him set up his machine, part of my payment was going home with a batch of pen blanks, and I still have 10 or 15 of those. I need to get through them, but he let me pick the colors, and I did. I worked at this side of the desk. He worked at that side of the desk, and he showed me how fast he was. And holy cow, he's fast at it. And I realized very quickly that I had to throw away probably a bunch of resin because it was turning to taffy by the time I got to the end of the pours, and some of the blanks were not even any good. Like, holy cow, you've got to move, and he's got it down. You go into the pressure pots, and yeah, and I just if I wanted to, I couldn't. I don't have the space in my shop. I mean, you can see. This is like most of the workspace I have behind me is covered with shipping stuff. Like this area in front of me, it's the size of a couple of notebooks. This is the only empty space in the whole shop, like desk space. This is just don't have space.
I think a lot of workshops are like that. You make do with the space you have,
yeah,
and you just make it work. So, to get back to your past of being a teacher, I know one thing that I always remember when I first met you is the scholarship program. So talk about how you got that started and, how that continues. And if people want to get involved, just talk about how it came to be and how it will continue going in the future.
So when I graduated from high school, I had zero plans of going to college. I had no money for going to college. I had no hopes of even, not scholarships, like FAFSA, like Pell Grant money. No money at all. My parents made literally just over the threshold by like maybe $50 or something of what the government would give you something with, but they still weren't making enough that they could just here's money for college. So the threshold is like, it's tight. But I went to a friend's house and was hanging out that summer after I graduated. So summer of '99, and his mom said, so what are you going to do with yourself? I'm like, I'm working. She's like, okay, and 2 jobs. I'm working 2 jobs. Hey, and she said, no. What are you gonna go to? When are you gonna go to school? Like, cause I guess she hated not seeing me in school. I mean, I can't go to school. I can't afford it. She said, okay, well, if you could go to school, what would you go for? I'm like, I don't know. I'd be an art teacher. I like art. I like people. I like art. Okay, let's go. Huh? So she drove my butt down to National Park Community College and signed me up full time. She paid for my first 2 years of college, which at the time, 1999, 2000, was a lot cheaper than it is now. But I mean, still, I would have never gone to school, probably at all, if it wouldn't have been for her. So I did 4 semesters. The 5th semester, I was able to afford 2 classes. I failed both of those. Embarrassingly, one of them was an art class. The art class that I failed, okay? I love you, Mr. Flanagan. Dad Flanagan's one of the best art teachers I've ever had. I took my work home a day early. I thought it was due and graded like on a Tuesday or something. It wasn't due and graded until that Thursday and Friday. I took it home Wednesday, which meant that I got a 0 for his class. Like, well, maybe a D, but attendance counts for something. But, oh my God, I felt so dumb after that. But
oh man,
I was working for a couple of years. I was a sign man, and one of our customers was telling me about student loans and all of that while we were working at his shop doing something. And so I got him saying student loans are easy to figure out. It's not complicated. I get a letter from National Park saying, hey, one of your teachers thinks you should come back to school. Here's some money. Oh, and then, so I went back to school with this money that someone said I should have, and get back into it, student loans and forgivable grants. And um, so I just had a ton of help when I went from National Park to Henderson. I know I'm rambling. Believe me, I know I ramble. But so I went from National Park to Henderson, which is a larger state school down in Arkadelphia. Thad Flanagan said, you need to go talk to Nancy Dunaway. Go talk to her. And that was it. I'm like, okay. So I called and made an appointment and went and talked to her. And what was probably only supposed to be like 15 minutes turned into like an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. And I left with money. She said, you know what? I like you. I'm going to give you some money. So I'm going to, seriously, like I'm sitting here like, whoa. So she gives me this money, take me to this grant that was earmarked for this other student, gave it to me. And I mean, just so the scholarships came from me wanting to say thank you to everyone who helped me, especially that first, my friend's mom. And after I started making pens and was doing better financially, I mean, we even like went out and bought a new used car, which, if it wasn't $2,000 or less, we weren't getting it. But we had payments, so the pen stuff was paying pretty well. I was thinking, I should do something to say thank you to her. I could write her a check for the money, like it was just $2,000, but that wouldn't mean anything. Like that would be sort of like the most, kind of a gesture I could make. So I thought about that movie, Pay It Forward, with Haley Joel Osment, and like, oh, like seriously, all right. And that's where the scholarships come from. Like, oh, I could just find money and give money to kids who want to go to college, and that's what I did. I just went online. Fountain Pen Network at the time was like the biggest spot for fountain pens to talk, and a bunch of people were just like, yeah, sure, here's some money, and some of those people are still donating monthly and or cut a decent check every now and then. And also, the way I raise money for the scholarships now is people donate. See all those boxes, all of these up here. And then there's more in the corner that you can't see behind all that stuff. But there's at least 1,000 pens back there, inks, stationery stuff, things that people have donated. Everything from like a Gin House Shark or like the Hero Parker 51 knockoffs, those kind of things, up to any kind of Conklin you can imagine. I've had Mont Blancs and Nicayas and Yardaleds and like Year of the Pen Yardaleds. I mean, people have donated everything you can imagine, and then some, and everything in between. And everything goes on eBay. It all starts at $1. It gets whatever it gets. Every penny, except for eBay fees, goes towards a scholarship fund. The only thing that I spend out of it is on shipping boxes and like tubes, PVC or those heavy cardboard craft tubes so things don't get crushed in the mail. So it's a ton of work, but it's worth like
no,
almost $8,000. So
that's a cool story.
thank you.
How many students at this point do you know have received scholarships since you got started with it?
So we've been doing this since 2013. So I started this almost as soon as I started making pens. We gave away $2,000 the first year and the second year. So that's 4 kids. And then every year since then, it's been something like 6 to 10 kids. I think 1 or 2 years, maybe 12 or 14 kids. A lot of it depends on how many applications we get. It all depends on how many applications we get, but it depends on like how many of those like have a real need, like show a need. But right now, I'm going to move the camera. This year, we've gotten more applications than any other year. And I forgot to say, hey, world, we're taking applications now. People were telling me they heard about me from how to get scholarships, blah, blah, whatever, websites.com. And let's see. From that black notebook on the side to the Dymo on the other side, that's 180 something applications that I've got to.
Wow.
Yeah, at least 180, maybe more, give or take a few here and there. But yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
So if people are watching or listening and they want to donate to help fund this, is there a link on your website? Because we can put that in the notes as well, just to be sure that if people want to help contribute, because it's a unique way, and the pen and stationery community in general seems to be a pretty giving group and supportive and likes to help out with causes. So we'll definitely make sure to put that link in the description of the recording for either the audio or the video, because that's one thing I remember, because he used to have the postcards, and I don't know if you still do the postcards, but it was the art postcards.
Few postcards, and we have a note. Let me see. I've got some dirty ones. I bet. Little notebooks. Well, okay, they're somewhere, but I've got little notebooks that different artists have given artwork for. What I used to do back when Daryl was still teaching is I would go and bug his students and take photos of their artwork, and I would use student artwork on the covers of the postcards at first, and then the notebooks later on. I still have a couple of notebooks with student art, but then later on I was able to get a bunch of I was able to meet some different artists on Instagram and online different places, and they were happy to donate their artwork, even just like email me, so I don't even need originals. But yeah, I mean, the whole thing. The Newton Pen Scholarships is a 501c3. I send out tax receipts every time somebody asks for one. I don't know how much it helps, but with their taxes. But this helped.
Hey, it could make all the difference for that person receiving it. You never know. I mean, and the fact that you're not just handing it out, you're making sure there is a need. That's where those small scholarships can really come to fruition. So
yeah,
only a couple more questions here. One, because every Newton pen that I bought, and granted, there's only between my wife and I think we have 3, maybe 4. They come in a case. So how did Elizabeth get into making the covers and cases that you sell with your pens? Because did she start with that at the beginning, or?
No, I started off with the same old like silk drawstring kind of pouches that you can find online, and I wanted something bigger because a lot of those they're just not very big. And so we went and picked out a sewing machine. We've since picked up 2 or 3 others over the years. Sewing machines are another rabbit hole you could go down, like fountain pens, really. Especially the vintage ones from the 50s. Man, those things are pretty. But they only do a couple of stitches. But no, so she started making these pouches for me. And the first ones were open on top. Well, that doesn't work because their pen will fall out. The other ones had a little thing that folded over with a string that wrapped around, which that's too fiddly, so neither of us really like those very much. And then she keep it simple, sleeve with the hole on the side, so that no matter how you shake your pen in a bag or purse, it's not going to fall out. It's just going to be bouncing around on the inside of the on the sleeve right there. And and they're fantastic. Even at some shows, I might have a slow Sunday, but I might sell 5 or 10 or 15 of these things. Depending on how many I have at the table, obviously, but she's been keeping up really well this last year with me. But yeah, it was just an alternative to a box, which I would feel guilty providing, because I don't know how many people are like me, but I don't want to have a bunch of pen boxes on shelves taking up space. I already don't have much space in here, so having a pen box that's big and unwieldy, or just something small like this, is like a no-brainer for me.
And I've always thought that's cool, because you started making pens, and then your wife's able to make sleeves, and that leads me to the next question. Now your son got into 3D printing and is making trays and accessory things. So just kind of talk about how that came to be. If do you have anything on your desk there? Like, because I saw the pen trays you had at Arkansas, where now you can stack them up and have a cool little way to carry all your stuff.
Yeah.
And, it's custom made for your needs, which I just thought was really cool.
And we can make them for other people too if we want them. If I had time, I would have had extras at Chicago for sale. We had 5 at Arkansas that he made. Now the felt, you got to do that yourself, but they got little slots, and I just glue the felt in, and this goes on top to keep it. So when they bounce around, when they're stacked together, they don't hit it against hard plastic. But also, it's hard to see. There we go, felt on the bottom too. So that way, like on a table, they don't scoot or slide or whatever too much. But yeah, my boy got into 3D printing about a year ago. He bought himself a cheap printer, and I saw that and thought, oh, hey, yeah, here we go. This will be a lot quicker to do prototypes of things than sending it off to one of the online print shops, and a lot cheaper and quicker. And yeah, so that's where that's gone.
Now, Does he sell through your website, or does he have his own website? If someone's looking
No,
for one of those trays, or
he does not. Let me see. I haven't tried. We haven't talked about selling through my website. He has no interest in doing that himself. Like, he's happy to print stuff or do a little bit of 3D designing in there. But he has made some things for Van Ness, some ink vial holders. Let me see. It's like these kind of things. So he's made a bunch of little vial holders that we can do things, stick those in. Um, yeah. So
oh, that's cool. And then I remember seeing, I think you had a pen in either for a repair or something like that you were able to make through 3D printing, a little collet to hold it.
yeah.
So have you, aside from that one, has the 3D printing access helped you in pen making, where you can make little one-of special use tools like that?
Yeah, I've made several collets in several different shapes and sizes, and it has made a huge difference for holding weirdly shaped or delicate parts. Or like, I don't need to make one for this, but if I had to hold this is one of the little Viscontis with the nib that pops out like that. But if I
Yeah.
could make a collet that could hold this and leave room for the clip so that I wasn't squishing the clip or anything like that, I'd be able to. It would fit all the way around and have a little notch just for the clip right there. Being able to make that kind of thing is awesome. And it has made a big difference on some of the repairs that I am able to take in, because a lot of pen companies make their caps in a way that it is pretty much impossible to remove the clip without like just breaking it off, which stinks.
No. So, as we start to wrap up here, the final question I've been asking everybody is, in your case, what's next for Newton Pens?
To keep on crossing my fingers and to keep on things, keeping on. Like, every time I tell someone new, the post office, at the bank, or where, I mean, there's people who don't know or care about fountain pens. Yeah, I make fountain pens for a living, and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I can't believe it either. I'm grateful for it. I still can't believe it. I mean, I've been doing it full time since 2015, and I'm still just sort of like waiting for someone to uncover me and go, "Oh no, yeah, this isn't real. This hasn't actually been happening." And to wake me up. I just want to keep going. I mean, I love doing what I do. I have fun with it. I love going to shows and talking to everybody. Like, the best thing about the shows are talking to all the people. I said that 100 times in Chicago this last weekend. Y'all are the best thing about this show. The people that come to see all the pens, and the vendors who come to move everything, and just, yeah, and the kids who get stuck, who get drug along by their parents because they don't want to leave them home or whatever. I love that. Like, I don't think I could ever go back to teaching, but harassing some kids at a pen show is almost as good. It's a ton of fun.
No, and the best part about pen shows is, I know we sent, like, when I interviewed some people and just on talking to locals after seeing Daryl's pens and your pens, like, hey, go to their table. Tell them we sent you. Go touch the pens, hold them, look at them, And I think that generated a couple of people like seeing them and then taking some home. So that's just a cool thing, because it's a neat community where you can say, hey, random stranger I've never met in person, we know each other online. Go see this other random person at this table and buy something they made. That's just a unique experience. So, I think we'll wrap up there. And, Shawn, thanks again. I know we kind of had a last minute scheduling, but it worked out great. I think we've had a good conversation. No. So, I'll put notes to your website, your social media. I know you post some stuff on Instagram every so often, and how people can find you online, because it's newtonpens.com, correct?
Yep.
Just so we have it on the audio as well.
That's correct.
So once again, thanks. And, if you're new to the DWRD Net stationary feed, be sure to check it out on YouTube for video, or for audio only versions, we're on Apple and Spotify. So for now, I'll leave you there, and thanks for watching or listening. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Bye.